What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. So we are officially through the conference championships. We're down to our final two. We have our Super Bowl matchup, and over the weekend we had two very competitive games between four very worthy teams that obviously were only fighting for two spots. So this week's video is going to be a little shorter. It's just going to be a recap of this past week. I figured wanting to give the Super Bowl the special attention it deserves with a standalone preview and a recap for that game because, obviously it's the Super Bowl, it's the biggest game of the year. But with all that out of the way, again, we had two very good games, very competitive games over the weekend. So without further ado, let's get into it. And starting off with our first game on Sunday, it was the AFC Championship. We had the 2-seed New England Patriots taking down the 1-seed Denver Broncos by a score of 10-7. This was a pretty unsurprisingly low-scoring game once you consider, everything in the lead up to the game, the two defenses that were matched up against each other, the personnel that both offenses had in this game, and then obviously when the conditions really turned for the worse in the latter part of the second half with the with the classic Colorado blizzard in 30 minutes or less. Both defenses really came to play, but both offenses also really had a tough time getting anything going, which I think both of those meshed to give us, what we got in this game, the low scoring output that we ended up with. As for New England, especially when the snow picked up, they were fully content with running the ball on every play and letting their defense do their thing, which is not an insult. It's not a dig at all. I honestly, if I was the coach of the Patriots, I would have done the exact same thing. They were very comfortable with letting their defense lead the way, and again, I would have done the same thing. They've really leaned on that defense all playoffs, and it's really paid dividends for them. Not that they were a bad unit in the regular season, because they absolutely were not. They were a top 10 unit in the regular season, but they've seriously upped their game in these playoffs to a point where I do think that this defense alone can lead them to the promised land. But with that being said, I think that if they're going to have a chance in this Super Bowl coming up in a couple weeks, Drake May and this offense seriously need to get it going. They need to take care of the ball much better. That the offensive line needs to do a better job of protecting Drake May, and his receivers really need to do a better job of getting him some safety valves in those collapsing pockets again with this defense they've got coming up in a couple weeks. Seattle's defense is a very tall task, and Seattle's offense is really no slouch either. So if the Patriots defense can't keep them contained all game, which I fully foresee that, they're not going to hold the Seahawks to 10 points. So the Patriots offense will really have to get it going and really be willing to pick the defense up if need be, in I think a very likely scenario if need be. But regardless, congrats to the Patriots, a well-deserved representative out of the AFC. They were the better team, got the win on Sunday, and again, a very deserving team to represent the AFC in this year's Super Bowl. As for Denver, this is just not going to be fun to go through. There's no getting around that. Overall, it's just such a sucky and heartbreaking way for such a magical season to come to an end. I think the part that sucks the most is that in the lead up to this game and the preview to this game was that I was saying for us to even have a chance in this game, the defense would have to play its best game of the year, and I really think they did. I really think the defense did in fact play their best game of the year, and obviously that wasn't enough. The Patriots offense couldn't get anything going. The pass rush was dominant. Again, it still just wasn't enough. Overall, there's a lot of good to have come out of this season and in the future. The Russell Wilson contract, the dead cap on that is officially off the books after this year. They got some money to spend, some real money to spend in this offseason, and they're still a very young team. They're going to continue to mesh, continue to develop, continue to get better, especially, this is year 2 of their quarterback, so they're going to continue to get better, but man, this is just a real bitter taste to be left with this season. And unfortunately, I think the what if Bo Nix never got hurt storyline will unfortunately remain one of the biggest what ifs in Denver sports history. I personally believe they easily would have won this game if they had Bo Nix, by at least 10. But, that's a tough thing with sports. We'll just be left asking ourselves that question for the rest of time. And then our second game was obviously the NFC Championship. It was the 1-seed Seattle Seahawks taking down the 5-seed and their division rival, the Los Angeles Rams, 31-27. And in exact contrast to what I said that I expected out of this game, it was a shootout. Especially in the second half, these two teams couldn't not score. And it's safe to say that round 3 between these two division rivals seriously lived up to the hype and lived up to the first two. As for Seattle, this offense, man, it's peaking at the right time. It really seems like at this point of the season, like at the end of the regular season and in these playoffs, they can pick apart the defense at will, and they can lead an efficient drive down the field towards a touchdown, like seemingly at will. A combination of a great system by Clint Kubiak, great quarterback play by Sam Darnold, and it always helps to have a freak of nature of Jackson Smith and Jigba's caliber as your number one receiver. The defense did get, slightly carved in the second half. It seems like the Rams couldn't also not score. So in these 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be really interesting to see if, this was just a byproduct of the Rams having a really good offense, or, if there's a last second potential blueprint on how to beat this usually very stout Seattle defense. As for Los Angeles, this was a fantastic game that unfortunately one team had to lose, and unfortunately for the Rams, they were that team. Overall, I think they played a fine and competitive game, except for one little tidbit. There was a lot of bad on their last real drive when they got into the red zone. First off, I don't like going for it on 4th down there. If it was 4th and 1 or 2, I'd get it. I'd really like your chances a lot better. But 4th and 4 that deep into the red zone is too long in my opinion. You've got a very limited playbook. You can't really run the ball because, again, the 4 yards is a lot on 4th down. And you can't really go deep either because obviously you're at like the 10-yard line. So your receivers can't really run that deep. And Sean McVay being in between on taking a timeout before that play, like the way I see it, if there's any doubt in your mind on a play of that magnitude in the game, even in your season, you should absolutely take your timeout 10 times out of 10. I don't know. There was just a lot that I did not like on that drive, and specifically that sequence for the Rams. But alas, the Rams did not win, and now they've got an offseason with a lot of what-ifs that start at the quarterback position. Is this the last we've seen out of Matthew Stafford? Only time will tell, and the answer to that question will go a long way towards dictating what the Rams do this offseason towards their roster as a whole. But that is it for me. Like I said in the intro, bit of a shorter video this week, just a recap of this past week because I wanted to do a special standalone preview and recap of the Super Bowl at a later point. But with that being said, if you have any thoughts of your own on the conference championships or looking ahead to the Super Bowl, feel free to drop them in the comments. Any thoughts on what I said on the conference championships, feel free to drop them in the comments as well. That is it for me. We got 2 weeks before the Super Bowl gets going, so until the preview, I'll see you in the next one.